Welcome to the second episode of the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week web series. My name is Khalil Malik, freelance journalist in the UAE, and I will be your moderator today. The COVID-19 pandemic has challenged us in ways we have never seen before, and countries around the world are working together to ensure the recovery from the pandemic is a green one. The pandemic has highlighted water and food security as critical priorities, and I am honored to have two influential female global leaders with us to discuss the challenges we face and how we can work together to tackle them. I would like to welcome Her Excellency, Mariam Al-Mehedi, Minister of State for Food Security in the UAE. Welcome, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Khalil.
I'd also like to welcome Her Excellency, Cora van Nieuwenhuizen, Minister of Infrastructure and Water for the Netherlands. Welcome, Your Excellency.
Good afternoon.
Minister van Nieuwenhuizen, I'd like to begin with you. Taking a look at water security, do you think the pandemic has changed water security priorities, and if so, how?
Well, thank you for this question. Before I address it, I would like to thank Her Excellency for inviting me to join in this webinar. I think we have very important topics to discuss. During this pandemic, it's even more important to combine our forces and learn from each other. And only creativity will enable us to find robust solutions. And yes, this pandemic has surely changed our view on water security priorities. All around the world, people are struggling with an unprecedented disaster. A crisis killing hundreds of thousands of people and jeopardizing our global economy. It reminds us once again that water is at the heart of many key challenges. As our doctors and laboratories work day and night to find solutions, washing our hands with water and soap still remains the first line of defense. It is there that the COVID-19 pandemic is highlighting once again the key inequities across the world. The virus itself makes no difference in touching rich or poor, north or south, but its negative effects are mostly felt by the poor and vulnerable. For them, adhering to public health advice such as hand washing and social isolation is simply impossible. Poverty and socio-economic distress will be exacerbated by the current crisis. It will impede and may even reverse the progress we have seen on development in recent decades. Because COVID-19 is an additional crisis. None of the challenges we faced before, such as climate change and water-related disasters, have gone away. In fact, extreme weather events are becoming more frequent and more severe. Like Tropical Storm Iota that hit Honduras and Nicaragua last week. It was the 31st storm of the Atlantic hurricane season. Never before so many storms have been recorded in one season. Climate change is affecting the availability of water and sanitation for potentially billions of people. Nevertheless, that same water and sanitation is a critical investment for recovery. And now is a defining moment. In spending the trillions of recovery money, we have the choice between investing it in the long-term green and blue resilience of our societies or wasting it on short-term quick wins. We need to build back better.
Thank you so much, Minister. What are the new technologies you are looking at to advance water security in the Netherlands?
Well, many technologies have been developed recently, especially technologies related to water treatment, wastewater treatment, and technologies for efficient water distribution in agriculture. The Netherlands is constantly searching for innovative ways to maintain our water security, and also for new technologies to combat this pandemic. The core obstruction to water security is inadequate governance, no access to finance, or insufficient awareness. So political action is extremely important, and even then, it is often not enough. It requires close cooperation with the private sector, making innovation affordable, stimulate research, design adequate policy. Only by collaborating and connecting sectors we can really make a difference. The Netherlands is a global pioneer in water management. We have a long history of containing flood risks and reclaiming land from the sea. And when it comes to food, we are one of the largest vegetable exporters in the world. And also, compared to others, we use much less water for our farming. And it is in this field of expertise where our countries again decided to join forces. Together, we are planning to construct the world's biggest indoor farm in the desert of Abu Dhabi. It's the perfect example of international collaboration between governments and the private sector. Our countries have more in common than you would expect at first glance. Therefore, we have decided to build bridges. Like, for example, the Dutch participation at the Dubai World Expo in 2021. We are delighted to show our program on water innovations to the rest of the world. And I would like to invite the Emirates and all other countries to cooperate and create a truly global exchange of challenges and solutions. Joining forces across the globe offers hope, energy, and real solutions. So let's ensure that our recovery from the COVID crisis is a resilient one.
Thank you, Minister. So, global issues around water security are often highlighted as one of the biggest risks that could lead to conflict. It's critical that we have global policies around water security. How can nations work together to solve these challenges?
Well, the problems related to water are increasing every day. Water shortage, but also floods, can propel instability in many regions of the world, leading to migration within or between nations. I'm a strong believer that we need to cooperate, sharing knowledge, upscale proven technologies, and building strong coalitions. Especially in times like these, when people tend to be divided in groups, it's important to build bridges and understanding. I'm convinced that if we stay behind, it will become more expensive due to loss of lives and economic damage. On the one hand, we need action on climate mitigation measures for long-term impact. But on the other hand, we need immediate action through climate adaptation to deal with the water issues that are already happening now. I'm convinced that through technology, planning and investment, we are able to limit the effects of climate change. And therefore, in 2018, the Netherlands initiated the Global Commission on Adaptation. This commission is led by former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, Bill Gates, and IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva. It has the support of 22 convening countries, including the United Arab Emirates. To help trigger the systemic change needed, the Netherlands will host the first ever global summit of world leaders entirely focused on climate change adaptation. This Climate Adaptation Summit will be held on January 25th, 2021, right after the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week. The summit will be a state-of-the-art virtual conference streamed worldwide over 24 hours with anchoring events from capitals around the world. And the Emirates are invited, and we would much welcome your contributions. We look forward to work with the Emirates on this noble task for now and for many years to come.
Thank you, Your Excellency. So just to recap a few points that you mentioned, it's important to combine our forces and learn from each other. Creativity is key, and water is at the key of many challenges, and essentially COVID has added an extra crisis. Climate change is affecting the availability for millions of people, and we need to build back better, as you mentioned. Technologies will be key going forward, related to water treatment, wastewater treatment, and efficient water distribution in agriculture. Political action, as you mentioned, is extremely important, and often it's not enough. So you suggested close cooperation with the private sector, which will be needed. And only collaboration can make a difference. As you said, for instance, the Netherlands is building the world's biggest indoor farm in Abu Dhabi. problems related to water are increasing daily, and sharing, cooperating on knowledge, technologies, and building coalitions will be key going forward. Thank you so much, Minister. I appreciate your help and your time.
Thank you for your excellent summary. Thank you.
Your Excellency Al-Muhaidi, I would like to now turn to focus on food security. It is said that the UAE imports 80 to 90% of its food, and the Food Security Office has a robust national food security strategy. What have we learned from having to implement this strategy at the start of the pandemic?
Very good question, Colleen. So let me take us a few steps back before I answer the question precisely. So we're very blessed in the UAE that our leadership have foresight in their DNA, and they've seeded within us to always make sure we're prepared for the future, that we're ready for what may happen. And so in 2017, I was appointed as the first Minister of State for Food Security for the UAE. And with that, His Highness told me, Mariam, please focus on three things. Focus on a plan, focus on technology, and focus on research and development. And with that, myself, my team, and all the stakeholders in the country got to work. We developed a plan, and this plan is the National Food Security Strategy, as you mentioned, which was launched in 2018. With any strategy or plan, you need a vehicle basically to be able to implement the strategy. So we established the Emirates Food Security Council in late 2019. And with that, we basically had a really good foundation to be able to pursue and do the agenda that we wanted to do for food security. A few months later, after establishing the Emirates Food Security Council, that's when the global pandemic was declared, and that's when the airplanes stopped flying, and basically our strategy was tested in that time. So within the strategy, because food security is about ensuring that the citizens and residents of a country have access to safe, sufficient, nutritious food at all times, including emergency, within the strategy, we already had a strategic direction about emergency preparedness. So in a way, this strategic direction was tested. And so through the pandemic, we tested the foundation of the strategy, we tested the programs, we saw that the Emirates Food Security Council, which is the platform in which we communicate with the stakeholders, where we identify gaps, where we can work quickly, we basically use this platform to maneuver through the daily, let's say, challenges that we received when countries put up restrictions, or we had issues at the border, or whatever it was. We were able to maneuver through these times. So the strategy was, in a way, already set up. The communication channels were set up. And going through these last few months, it's been a huge learning curve for us as a country in this file. And what it really has shown is that over the years, our leadership have really forged the international relations between so many countries, and this really came out in the last few months of how vital and how important this was. So this, in a nutshell, going through what we've been through has, in a way, showed us that the plan we have is robust, but it has also shown us that certain areas have gotten more priority over others.
Thank you. So on to my second question. Technology in new food production has really taken off with innovations like vertical farming and plant-based meat substitutes. What are the new exciting technologies the UAE is looking to implement?
Yes, so technology is really one of the key pillars where we see if we want to boost our local production, knowing that the UAE is a water-scarce country, we have less than 5% arable land. So with that, the key for us to be able to boost local production is to use technology and innovation. And within this, I'm talking about closed environment agriculture, which is known as CEAs. And within CEAs, you have the vertical farms, you have the high-tech greenhouses, you have so many different, let's say, concepts of hydroponics, aeroponics, aquaponics. These all lie within the domain of CEAs. So we really want to raise the bar when it comes to CEAs, because we feel as a country, this is where we can really focus on to be able to boost local production. So we're really looking at how we can enhance the ecosystem to attract foreign direct investments in this area, and also to enable our local farmers to transform into more sustainable food systems. Another point is, and I have said this in many of my speeches, we always want to focus on the 3 S's that we have. So the sun, the sea, and the sand. These things we have in abundance. So we need to think of what can we grow using these. So one of the things that many are talking about right now is algae, for example. Algae is a product that can be used for human consumption, but it can also be used as fodder or fish feed. And it's just exciting to see that this superfood, basically, or this new superfood, is something that we could easily grow in the UAE because we have those inputs in abundance. So I really envision to see that we raise the bar in ag tech in general.
Thank you so much. So as countries begin to recover from the pandemic, what should nations be doing to ensure food resources are distributed equitably?
So, Colleen, as we all know, even before the pandemic, we had a big issue in the distribution of food. So we are growing enough food for all, for the global community, but there is an issue we have with how it's distributed, because even before the pandemic, there are millions still going hungry. The last numbers are 690 million people going hungry every night, and we think that another 150 million will be added to this by the end of this year because of the pandemic. Knowing also the fact of that about a third of food produced is going to waste also shows that there is a big distortion here. So it's really important that we need to collaborate more. We need to share knowledge. We need to talk to each other. We need to think of ways of how to get back on track towards the SDGs. It's not far away. It's another 10 years, and there's still a lot to do. So we need to accelerate our efforts. We need to work together, and we really need to look at how countries have sort of overcome their challenges and share that knowledge with others. So for us, for example, here in the UAE, having developed a strategy, having developed a plan, ensuring that all stakeholders in the country are aligned with this plan, are moving in the same direction, speaking with one voice, is really, really important at this time. And of course, sharing knowledge is extremely important as well. Knowing that we have challenges in the environment to grow food, yet we are adopting and adapting technology as well, and using that knowledge and helping others in doing so. So I think the next step forward in this is really, as I said, the collaboration part, sharing knowledge, and really trying to get back on track towards the SDGs. And it's not going to be easy. It was already challenging before the pandemic. We're all looking for the food summit that's coming up next year as well. And with these events, it's always a good time to come together, to talk, to network, to share experiences and help each other.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I will just do a quick recap of the points that you've spoken about. So the UAE's leadership, as you mentioned, has foresight in their DNA, and they're ready for what may happen. You were told when you were first appointed as the minister to focus on a plan on technology and research and development, which formed the national strategy, as you mentioned. And also then the Emirates Food Security Council was established, and that gave a good foundation to pursue the agenda for food security. Food security is also about ensuring residents and citizens of the country have access to safe, nutritious, and sufficient food. And the national strategy in the UAE included this emergency preparedness that you mentioned. So the strategic direction was tested during the pandemic, and it was set up, and going through the last few months, as you mentioned, it's been a huge learning curve. But it has shown, as you said, that the leadership forged international relations between many countries, which came out to show how vital this strategy was. Technology, you mentioned, was one of the key pillars to boost local production because the UAE is unfortunately a water-scarce country. And you are looking at CEAs, which are hydroponics, aquaponics, aeroponics, amongst others, and you want to raise the bar of those. You also mentioned the 3 S's, sun, sea, and sand, of which we have an abundance in the UAE, and that we need to think more of what we can grow using these, and algae is one of them as a superfood. And that you mentioned you envision that we raise the bar in ag tech in general. And there's also an issue in food distribution, as you said, even before the pandemic, and a third of even the food produced goes to waste. So there's a big distortion, and we need to start sharing knowledge and get back on track towards the SDGs, looking at how countries have overcome their challenges and sharing that knowledge because it's vital. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Colleen. Can I add one more thing to that, Colleen, as well? I think it's really important for people to understand that the whole domain of food security, it's not just a government or a private sector responsibility, it's an individual responsibility too. We all, each and every one of us, has a responsibility. Our behavior around food is what basically pulls onto the food system. So the choices we make and what we buy, what we put into the bin, how we prepare our food, how we let's say, educate our families or the little ones around behavior when it comes to food, plays a huge role on our food systems. So it really also comes down to individuals using this time to appreciate food more and maybe trying, each and every one of us, to be ambassador of change and trying to avoid putting any edible food into the bin and trying to look a little bit more on portion size. I think that's where we could all start. So with that, I want to thank you, Colleen. I want to thank you, the team at the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week web seminar sessions that we're having here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would like to thank both Her Excellency Al-Mahedi and Her Excellency van Nieuwenhuizen for their time. Thank you all for attending, and we look forward to having you join us for the next web series episode. And a reminder that Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week 2021 will be held virtually from January 18 to 21. Registration is now open. If you would like more information, please visit adsw.ae. Thank you.